Michigan. Um, there's there's sort of a established guilt to a fixed blame syndrome going on, I think sometimes with respect to communities and, East Lansing and Lansing, because you guys don't do X or Y or Z together, we're not going to give you revenue sharing or whatever the case might be because the state's budget has been so upside down for the last couple of years. We're kind of into that crazy finger pointing portion of the program at this point in time. But the creative regionalism is something that really matters more about what patch the cop has on his shoulder when he pulls you over when you leave this office later, so be sure not to speed. It's more about, how do we leverage this? How do you leverage East Lansing, 5 miles east of here, 7, 6, something like that, and this enormous college and everything that it has with this potentially dynamic, historic downtown that houses the state government, the state capitol, and everything around it. How can we look at creating a type of environment that students who go to MSU will stay in the area, that we can have additional startups and those types of things. It's sort of the more of a creative aspect of 4 or 5 different things we might be doing together. Certainly transit is something they've been talking about, and what type of housing are we going to have, and how can you play off the historic downtown to the growth area out to the north, whatever that might be. That's what we need to be doing from a regional aspect. In terms of creating these types of places that people want to be in. More so than some of the other stuff, even though we need to do a lot of the consolidation work and the collaboration work as well. We need to be bold and visionary. We need to stop the negative talk. Someone's going to have to have been there. Who was at the Mackinac Policy Conference last year? Still no one. One, thank you, sir. We brought in a woman from Minneapolis. She was with the Minneapolis Chamber. And I remember her talking. She'd been on the island for 2 days, and this is the Greater Detroit Chamber. There's about 1,800 business people there, a lot of politicians and things, and everybody was talking to her about how great Minneapolis was and how horrible Michigan was. And she got up there after 2 days of this and said, "What are you guys doing?" She goes, "I didn't know Michigan was this until I got here. No one else thinks of you this way." It's like, just stop the negative talk, move on. And she had a list of things wrong with Minneapolis, but all we did is look at their demographics and say, "You're better on this and you're better on that." We've become sort of this instant negativity about everything that we do, and it's sort of easy to get there with all the bad things that have happened to our economy and other aspects of the state. But we've got to sort of move on forward and create this new vision and start going after it as we move forward. It's in all aspects of things. We're doing a whole bunch of things. I'll talk about that in a minute. And that's that. Here's a line that we sort of ended with, and we started using this before Barack Obama stole it. We stole it from somebody else, but he stole it later, so we'll see. But again, we're the ones we've been waiting for, and I think this is something that as local communities, as local community leaders, we felt very strongly about, and we remind our people all the time that it used to be we kind of wait on good things to happen and good ideas to come into the local level and try to implement them, but we really believe now with what we know about what's going on, and together with sort of some of the sustainability issues happening in the state, we've got to play a larger role in what we're doing and sort of take our own destiny into our hands. And I think that's important across the board for everybody here. So with that, I think we had a couple things we were going to pass out to you that talk about what we're doing. One is our what we're calling our prosperity agenda that tries to quantify what we know here into sort of a legislative action. And the other one is information on what we're calling our 21C3 or Center for 21st Century Communities project that we have at the League that we've created to educate local officials and quite frankly anybody else about some of the things that we know to be important and get them thinking around what all this means and how we can start creating places that are going to be vibrant and attractive as we move forward. So that'll be more for you to read as you're going out. So that's the presentation. I appreciate you hanging around, and thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yes, ma'am.
I grew up in Lincoln Park, and what used to be the downtown is now pretty much a collection of empty storefronts. What could a city like Lincoln Park do to become kind of a vibrant, walkable, attractive community?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of things. I guess the first thing I'd like to answer those or to address is, largely that's happened. Those businesses have left and gone elsewhere with state tax subsidies and other things that sort of driven them elsewhere. So in some ways, we've got to be smarter about keeping our historic places in line, if you will. And we've not done a good job of that. They gets back to a few slides ago that I talked about. One of the things Lincoln Park, and I think it gets back to creative regionalism. I think Lincoln Park plays a role within Downriver within Greater Detroit, somewhat of a bedroom community. It has a downtown. How's it playing off of other things? There's a great book that was written by someone with the University of Michigan Connections, Christopher Leinberger, who is a adjunct professor and works at Brookings and a couple other places. It's called The Option of Urbanism. He talks about having these creative urban places. Maybe one's Lincoln Park, maybe one's Wyandotte, maybe one's Dearborn, some of those other areas there where you can have some of the sort of typical suburban type places, but you've got to have the urban options within those places. Otherwise, people aren't staying, and he quantifies it really well in terms of what he's doing. So, I'd like to see the state do a lot of things from funding that particular area, which they've completely underfunded, to creating incentives and pushing development into that particular area. So what you read and what I show you right there, what you're getting is some more specifics on that. But that's the conundrum. That's the conundrum. Yes, sir.
Before I moved to Lansing, I was from Royal Oak. Before that, I was in Detroit.
Okay.
Before that, a bunch of other different states. But when I moved to Royal Oak, this was 1994, I believe it was. And it was just starting to explode. And, people were telling me 5 years prior to me coming there, like 1990, late 80s, it was just a dust town. And then, I get there and it exploded, and it's just like the hub of everything. It's like, another Ann Arbor. But how does a town out of nowhere, become something? And then you have a town like Lansing, which is the capital and a lot of people around, where it's hard. It was hard for me to adjust up there. You were talking about all the stuff. You got to give people stuff to do. Yeah. In the wintertime, there's like nothing to do up here. In the summertime, it's pretty decent. But in Royal Oak, every day, I lived downtown, and if I got bored at home, all I used to do was just walk downtown, sit on the bench, and just people watch. And how do you take a dust bowl like Royal Oak to become the way it is, and other cities just seem to have a hard time getting to where Royal Oak and Ann Arbor is, to give you an example?
Well, I think you kind of answered your own question in there a couple times. I mean, it was a place you wanted to be. It was a place you wanted to be, and you said, well, I just go down and sit on the bench. Some cities don't have benches to sit on. And so Royal Oak did a number of different things. And from inside baseball government level in terms of codes and enforcements and things like facades and density within that particular area. They've added a lot of density there. They brought a lot of people in. It's a very welcoming community. It's one of the few diverse communities we have at a real level. Historic downtown, they've probably leveraged their historic downtown better than most, but probably maybe a half a dozen other communities in the state would be in that same neighborhood. It's an entrepreneurial community. I mean, you can work there. That guy that I showed up there can work in Royal Oak. There's a lot of them. They're around there. They want to be around each other. So all the things that you mentioned and woven within the question are what we're talking about. The problem Royal Oak has, and I'll use other communities similar to that. Grand Rapids has done some great things. East Lansing has done some great things in the last decade or so. Marquette, which I mentioned, if you haven't been to Marquette in years, it's a different community now than it was in 1980 or 1990. They're all going broke. They're all going broke. The system we had, it's not as much the economy as it is the system they have to work under. Everyone sort of thinks, well, it's the economy, when it turns around, they'll be better. They won't. It's exacerbated by the economy. So in this central Michigan region, East Lansing plays a huge role in that. And when you're laying off cops and not paving roads and not even able to get to things like transit and creating some of these unique places and leveraging the university and everything else the way that they want to do, we don't have a shot. Cut their taxes in half. They kind of want to do that across the street. Let's just cut taxes and declare victory. It ain't going to work. So we've got to have those types of places, and we've got to make sure that we're supporting them. And I guess the last thing is, we still have a lot of economic incentives that are aimed at greenfields in Michigan.